So Piers Morgan of Piers Morgan Uncensored recently went on the Trigonometry podcast to promote his latest book, Woke is Dead, which apparently woke is not dead. It's still very much alive, unfortunately, and Piers is part of the contributing problem to that. But anyway, we'll leave that aside for a moment. Konstantin Kisin and Francis Foster do a brilliant job in pretty much revealing a lot of Piers Morgan's failed logic when it comes to Israel, right? And I think these two men challenging Piers Morgan's viewpoint on how Israel has been handling the war in Gaza at the moment with the Palestinian people is quite telling, you know, because Piers Morgan has been quite one-sided for the vast majority of the time. He is a grifter. He's someone that does things for clicks and then can't understand why Israel does things. And then, I mean, if you're bringing up a Dave Smith logic part of like an analogy per se in one of your rambling points, you're off to a terrible start. I'm just pointing that out very, very clearly because lots of the Dave Smith arguments or analogies, I should say, have been dismantled quite easily. If you think about it for longer than 10 seconds, you realize that anything that Dave Smith or Piers Morgan, because we know that Piers Morgan and Dave Smith are like best buds. And when it comes down to the whole Israel thing, they agree on, well, Israel's the bad guy and Hamas, the terrorist organization, is the good guys here, which, I mean, it's quite ridiculous. But I think Konstantin and Francis do a brilliant job in really dismantling Piers's arguments or lack thereof about indiscriminate bombing. So apparently Israel is indiscriminately bombing Gaza, flattening Gaza, the vast majority of it, which we know 70-something% of Gaza has been flattened because of all the bombing and all that sort of other stuff. And lots of people have been tragically killed, most of them being Hamas terrorists. That's a good thing because we don't want terrorism in our world, okay? But yes, it's also meant that innocent lives, including children, have been lost in the process. That's because when you really think about it for longer than 10 seconds, Piers Morgan, and you actually understand the realities of war, you will understand that Hamas has embedded themselves within all of Gaza. They use the Palestinian people and they treat the Palestinian people, I'll also have you know, with a great deal of disrespect. They don't care about the Palestinian people. They will use them as human shields. And anyone that does that, you're going to be made to look like the bad person automatically because you're at a very big disadvantage straight away. You've got Hamas using people as human shields, going against the realities of how you're supposed to do a war. If you have any proper ways to go about doing a war, I don't think there really is. Suppose it like if you're using innocent civilians as human shields, you're the problem. But anyway, that being said, we know what Hamas is all about, but people still defend Hamas. We should not be defending Hamas. Plain and simple. But still, you've got loads of commentators that criticize Israel and support and defend Hamas. They support Islam. They run cover for them, and they just become the useful idiots for Islam. Let's point that out. Clear as day, right? So here is the exchange about indiscriminate bombing. Have a watch.
You've used the phrase indiscriminate bombing repeatedly. Why do you say it's indiscriminate?
I'll give an example. Say they get information there's one Hamas terrorist. Well, I saw Dave Smith use this analogy, so let me give him the credit for it. If somebody murdered one of your family, okay? Horrible hypothetical, but let's assume this has happened. And you get told that one of the people who was responsible is living in a tower block with 150 people in it. Do you think it's justified to go and blow up the whole tower block and kill 149 innocent people as you kill the one person who is responsible for the loss you suffered?
There's a calculation in the laws of war where there has got to be some proportionality. There's got to be some taken of account.
Do you think there's been any proportionality now in Israel's response?
Well, what I mean,
1,200 people got killed.
What I'm asking you
over the 7th. We're now up to maybe as many as 100,000.
But Piers, with all respect, that's a terrible argument. Because,
is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
That's a terrible argument.
I don't think it is.
It is, because way more Germans were killed at the end of World War II than British people were killed, and yet we bombed Germany into the ground because we were defeating them, right? I think that is a terrible argument, but I'm trying to find out why you say it's indiscriminate. Indiscriminate means they don't care if they're just bombing a civilian building, they're just trying to flatten Gaza. That's what you think is happening?
70% of Gaza has been flattened.
Yes.
In what way would you not think that suggests a degree of indiscriminate bombing?
The reason that people would challenge the idea of it being indiscriminate, for example, Andrew Fox, as I mentioned, who has a very nuanced view of this, as we found out, he was saying that when he was in Gaza, what he saw was that Hamas adapted their tactics as the war went on. And when they realized that the Israeli IDF was going house to house, they then did the evacuation themselves. They pulled the civilians out and then booby-trapped every single building. So the destruction of a lot of buildings is evidence of the fact that a lot of them are booby-trapped, and that's why they're being destroyed.
I'm sure some of them were.
He made the point that more bombs have been dropped on Gaza than the number of people who've been killed in Gaza, which kind of tells you that it's his argument, not indiscriminate. So that's the only reason I'm asking. And I'm genuinely just wondering.
I've read some of the 5-6 times as many bombs have been dropped in totality than the total power of the 2 nuclear bombs dropped in Japan. I mean, you know, what is indiscriminate? To me, you can argue that indiscriminate means you don't care at all. I wouldn't go as far as that.
Okay.
But I would say that the way they have gone about targeting sometimes individual members of Hamas that they believe are in a cafe, and they just blow the whole cafe to pieces, that shows in my opinion, a reckless disregard for civilian life that is around that one person. And again, I come back to the Hezbollah thing. Why is it that they can target Hezbollah and dismantle Hezbollah in such a brilliantly sophisticated surgical strike manner, which does not involve destroying Lebanon or wiping out 100,000 Lebanese people, you know, killing 20,000 Lebanese children? Why is it they're capable of that there, but they're completely incapable of any other war strategy here, when most people believe, who know Hamas, that this was all part of Hamas's plan, that they knew when they did what they did, this is what would happen?
The argument would be, and by the way, I have family who come from Lebanon, is that Hezbollah are concentrated in one particular part of Lebanon. They're not concentrated.
Well, Israel didn't blow it up.
But if you look at Gaza, it's very, very densely populated, and Hamas are physically embedded within that.
Sure.
They have consciously embedded themselves, as we all know, within the civilians.
Sure.
So it's almost impossible to be able to target them.
But if Hamas is showing such a spectacular disregard for its own civilian life, then I would argue that you should always, if you're in Israel's position as the only democracy in the region, and you've got the biggest military in the region, it's even more incumbent on you not to be as reckless with civilian life as the people that you're going after.
We didn't just bomb Germany into the ground because we wanted to defeat them. It wasn't just Germany, I'll have you know. It was also Japan. I think people forget about how brutal Japan was, how much they didn't care about the Chinese, how much they didn't care about the Allies. Like, these people, the Japanese people, were horrific. They killed millions during World War II. The stories you hear, I don't know if any of you have heard any of the stories, but compared to the Nazis, the Japanese got away with a lot. Why? Because we dropped 2 atomic bombs on them. So therefore, that somehow justifies all of the horrors that Japanese did, because we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So people forget that the Japanese were going out of their way, intentionally killing many innocent Japanese or allies, not Japanese, Chinese, and the allies. They're horrible about it. You don't have to look too far into history and see their side of the story. Like, it's brutal. Not the Nazis were bad, believe you me. But the problem is that the media during that day and the propaganda machine focused heavily on Europe, not so much on Japan or the Pacific, but on Europe. The moment the Nazis were defeated, then we had to worry about Japan. Japan was not going to surrender. So guess what? We had to do the one thing that we never thought we'd have to do, drop 2 atomic bombs. And that made them surrender. It forced them to surrender. The Japanese weren't. So in today's day and age, the level of propaganda is focused entirely on, well, supporting or propping up this idea that Israel is the bad one for going after and trying to get the hostages back. And they forget that Hamas is the one that started it all. They forget that Hamas is the one that it has embedded themselves. They're forgetting the rules of law. And you've got these dingbats that don't understand anything about warfare, nothing like that. And they just go, Israel should stop. Right. What about the hostages that Hamas won't release? They refuse. Hamas could stop this tomorrow, today even, if they wanted to. They've had numerous opportunities to stop, but they haven't. And you can't blame Israel because Hamas should not be getting rewarded here. They're not Japan. It's like Japan was actually rewarded after World War II, believe it or not, because America decided, you know what, we can change the systems here, and they did. But a vast majority of the people that actually committed war crimes were reinstated. That should tell you everything you need to know. But Hamas should not be rewarded. And they're being rewarded at the moment by Mark Carney, even our prime minister, wanting to give them their own bloody state. That is terrible. We should not be rewarding terrorism. That's just a fact, shouldn't it? But yet, the lies that I've been seeing are vehemently towards or against Israel. Hamas knows this as psychological warfare. And they're very smart at it. And we've got useful idiots of Hamas that they've got major platforms because it is so easy these days. It is so easy to bash Israel online, to attack Israel. It's very profitable too. And believe you me, it is harder nowadays to stand for Israel than it is to bash them online. It's so easy to bash Israel online. But the truth is this. Israel has been right all along, and all the commentators that are saying that they're wrong, you've got to check where their allyship really lies. Because guess what? Piers Morgan has always been about, well, Israel killing innocent civilians for the aid, this, and that. Turns out that 90% of UN aid trucks in Gaza were looted by armed militants or hungry Palestinians before reaching the destination. How about that? Piers Morgan was wrong. Yet again. A grifter and a liar. Anyway, I'm glad that there are people out there like Francis and Konstantin that can actually dismantle stupid arguments. But anyway, thank you all for your support. You guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.